Welcome to our webinar, Increase OEE with Connected Maintenance Work, and thank you for your interest and attendance. Today we are covering a very exciting topic, that is digital maintenance, which plays an important role, especially in today's times of competitive pressure, cost pressure, etc. And that makes it all the more important that machines are always operational and machine downtime is avoided. All the better that today we have a global player and a strong company like Oetiker on board that will tell us firsthand how to digitize a paper-based preventive maintenance process, what factors are vital for a successful digitization project, and what benefits are gained by doing so. Before we start with the introduction of the speakers, I would like to briefly mention that we have prepared some slides to guide you through the webinar step by step, but it's still intended to be an interactive webinar. That means if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them via the chat function and Q&A function. If it fits the content, we will pick up the answer right away, and otherwise we will have plenty of time to address your questions in the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Now we don't want to keep you in the queue, but start with introduction session. As I said, exciting topic and great speakers. I suggest that we start from left to the right. Jacob, would you please introduce yourself briefly to our audience?
Perfect, thanks Marcus. So hello everyone, my name is Jacob Reid and I'm the head of engineering for the Oetiker Group. That means I'm responsible for strategic engineering operations in all of our factories around the world. I've been with the company for over 11 years now. And I'm sitting in Canada, just north of the city of Toronto.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll pass on to my colleague Bastian.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Bastian Schröder, and I'm the Customer Success Manager at Operations One. And as a Customer Success Manager, I help our customers to grow and to reach the best with our software. And in this case, Oetiker is in my customer portfolio. That's why I'm here to explain a little about the use case later on.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Susan Conrad. I'm the head of equipment engineering in the Oetiker Group and take since over 7 years response for everything related to machines, especially to the maintenance of our machines. And I'm the key users Operation One.
Glad to have you with us today. Thanks. My name is Markus Klotzbach and I'm Product Marketing Manager at Operations One, and I'm very excited to lead you through the webinar as a moderator. I think a good start for you, dear audience, is to learn something about the Oetiker Group. So I would like to ask you, Jacob, to introduce Oetiker to the audience in more detail, please.
My pleasure. So a few slides. The first, just to kind of give a general overview of the company. So Oetiker is a privately owned global leader in high-end fluid connecting solutions. As you see on the left, that encompasses things like clamps and compression rings, heavy-duty straps and V-clamps, as well as quick connectors. We serve both the automotive industry as well as select industrial applications, and we're proudly responsible for over 2 billion connections annually. We have what's called a 360-degree solution approach. So in addition to the products that you see on the left, we also manufacture and offer the assembly solutions to close and install those connections on the application, as well as a strong global customer service presence, both to help establish the appropriate connecting solution for our customer's application, including engineering, testing, prototyping, and analysis, as well as in-life management of those connections. Means commissioning, training, and maintenance and service of the assembly tools. Overall, our mission is to provide peace of mind that every connection that's made with an Oetiker product is reliable and leak-free. As you can see on the slide here, we're focused on 3 major segments within the market: passenger vehicles, commercial vehicles, and industrial applications. And within each of those segments, we've identified key customer applications that we have really focused our expertise on. Some examples are shown in the middle, from powertrain and driveline to occupant safety, things like airbag fixation within vehicles, through to medical, food and beverage, and aftermarket service. On the right, then, you can see an example of many of the customers that we're proud to support. And then finally, from a global presence, we really see that proximity to the customer is one of our key factors for success. A lot of the customers on the previous slide are operating globally, and so we need to be present globally as well to understand their applications. We therefore maintain sales and manufacturing facilities around the world, and as you can see on the slide, they're fairly evenly distributed between the Americas, Europe, and Asia. It actually leads very well into the future slides that we'll talk about. With a global manufacturing presence, from my perspective, we see that digital solutions are really essential for us to maintain consistent product quality, consistent costs, and consistent consistent delivery globally to our customers. And so I'm really excited to speak to you in the upcoming slides about where we've gone with Operations One.
Yeah, thank you very much for introducing Oetiker Group, Jacob. It's really impressive to see, let's say, the range of product industries you are covering, and not to mention the global reach, of course. And especially in our discussions with you, we really saw that it's very important to deliver top quality, since your products are, let's say, built in or used in cars, and they have to meet the highest quality standards. And of course, if you want to produce or manufacture top quality, you need, let's say, a machine park that is operational and of course ready to manufacture the top quality. And of course then maintenance is very important.
Absolutely.
To round off the introduction, I would like to introduce you to Operations One as well. We are a cloud software company in Germany, and since day one, we have been dedicated to empowering the worker on the shop floor to perform his tasks easier, faster, and more efficiently. And as you can see, we do this now with over 70 employees. And in the meanwhile, Operations One is used in more than 15 countries worldwide. We are proud of being a long-term partner to our customers, and yeah, the logos really show the broad range of the industries we are active. Also, you can find us in operational areas like assembly, quality, commissioning, like with Oetiker maintenance, occupational health and safety. And we are supporting our customers from 2 locations, Augsburg and Frankfurt. And above all, Operations One scores with the end-to-end process coverage, talking about implementation into existing system landscape. But above all, strength is that Operations One is an easy to use and flexible connected worker platform that enables the customer to really use the software across multiple plants globally to scale up very easily and to create benefits, not just in one area, but also for a whole company. So speaking of customers generally, when customers come to us, they pretty much know what the problems and pains are. And this was also the same case at Oetiker. So I would like to ask you, Jacob, what was the status quo in maintenance at your company before the introduction of Operations One?
Sure. So maybe to set the stage, prior to Operations One, Oetiker had already established the fundamental culture of lean manufacturing. That was a journey all on its own, but it resulted in establishing the basic tools and systems like visual management, 5S, total productive maintenance in all of our production facilities. Initially, a lot of that culture was managed using manual tools, so paper, whiteboards, magnet boards, and only minor digital tools, maybe Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Outlook, and things like that. Then in 2020, we started our digital transformation of the operational side of the organization, trying to keep with those lean manufacturing concepts by implementing a global manufacturing execution system called Leading to Lean. And then Operations One came along roundabout in 2021. Prior to that, we were in the middle of this shift from, say, the manual tools to the digital tools. So we show on the slide here from left to right, we had already established some basic communication with our machines. Means we knew when the machines were running, when they were stopped, why they were stopped, how many pieces they'd run, how long they'd been running. And based on information, we could already establish and trigger our maintenance cycles when machines and assets need to be maintained. but a lot of the detailed scheduling of that maintenance work was still done manually. Again, Excel, Microsoft Outlook, magnet boards, and so on. The maintenance work and the documentation itself was paper-based. We had controlled digital copies saved on a file share or on a server somewhere, but the actual copies that were then provided to the maintenance technicians were paper-based, printed out. The daily work of the maintenance technician was basically to take the paper copies, follow the checklist on the paper, mark off the tasks were completed, and then bring that usually oil-covered dirty piece of paper back to a scanner where we could scan the copy back into the PC and finally save and archive away back into our MES system leading to Lean.
Okay, so in summary, real process with system breaks, with media breaks, and when you look at the process for the worker, it's a very paper-based, as you've mentioned, and I think there was a lot effort involved in, let's say, start of the process and also in the end when you have to digitize the paper-based documents back into PDF format, for example.
Absolutely, you could get from one end to the other, but it was not an easy journey every day. It was quite a lot of work.
I can imagine, yeah. Yeah, if we now take a look at your challenges that we've divided into 3 categories: document handling, process, and global. Yeah, what were the specific challenges in each category?
So for document handling, the whole process to create, release, revise, and distribute the documents was very time consuming and very manual. You imagine we have hundreds of pieces of equipment around the world that are maintained on an annual, but also semi-annual, monthly, weekly, daily, sometimes a shiftly basis, means every 8 hours. And to try to make sure that the right revision of the right document for that equipment was available in paper copy to the technician in a production environment at the right time was a daily struggle. Also the ability to make sure that that document was up to date, not that it was an old copy that was saved in a binder somewhere, but that it was the latest copy, especially from the automotive perspective, that revision control, that the right work was being completed on the right equipment at the right time was, again, very difficult to maintain and control. And finally, the flexibility of that documentation was a challenge. We have, for example, 30 of the same pieces of equipment around the world, but each of those equipment have slight differences due to the products they're manufacturing or the location that they're installed. And the paper-based system wasn't very well able to manage the variation or the configurations of the equipment because of that difference. And so generally those documents were on a bit of a more generic level. They weren't specifically detailed to the exact machine that the technician was working on, which meant that technician needed a little extra information and training behind the scenes to really fully complete the work that they needed to do. From the process side, again, just that overall workflow and complexity to try to make sure the right information was available to the technician at the right time, not just from a document point of view, but from a system approach was very difficult. You saw on the previous slide, we went from the machine into leading to Lean to paper copies, back into a scanner to leading to Lean. So it was multiple different systems that people needed to work in to try to maintain the connection of the information. And then at the end of the system, once we would complete the maintenance documents and scan them back into leading to Lean, there was no real easy way to analyze the effectiveness of that maintenance. It means if there were issues during the maintenance, if pieces were not available in stock or the machine was not available at the scheduled time, there wasn't a really good way of using all of that data to really analyze opportunities for improvement. Finally, on the global perspective, all of the topics that I mentioned before really led to just that difficulty in global standardization. You've got the same equipment with variations and configurations globally, maintained in different facilities, trying to maintain in different languages of the workforce. And so to really have a standard maintenance practice, but with flexibility to adapt to all of those slight differences was a daily challenge. And last but not least, the sustainability. I mean, I mentioned already, we were printing paper copies of instructions daily, only to be scanned and thrown in the recycle box. So the impact environmentally on our maintenance process was also a consideration from our side as a challenge.
Okay, so now when you know the challenges, above all, you're looking in the end for a partner with whom to solve them, and maybe it will help our audience to, hear with your own words why you chose Operations One.
Absolutely. One of the first topics also shown on the slide is that we needed a global solution that was available to everyone, anywhere, any time of the day. You know, one of the big challenges with that paper system was having the right documents at the right time, and moving to a digital system that was on a server that might need maintenance or that could have issues due to network interruptions in some of our facilities was a big challenge. So having something that was cloud-based, secure, and stable was a real necessity from our side. Also, realization of integration with our existing manufacturing execution system, leading to lean. We wanted, say, a single point of truth for our data, but also a seamless working environment for our shop floor people. And so to be able to connect very closely to leading to lean was important to us. Like I mentioned before, flexibility and configuration of the instructions and the maintenance work was another key point, that we didn't need to have thousands and thousands of documents specific for every single piece of equipment, that we could have more of a flexible document structure that could pull the right information at the right time. Multiple language is also included in that. So not only is the document available in English, but the same instruction is available in German for our German colleagues or in Lithuanian for our Lithuanian colleagues. And last but not least is close collaboration with the team. A lot of this digitalization journey also involves learning how we are already working today, you know, trying to document on a more detailed level what we're already doing. And so as Oetiker learned, we needed to be able to collaborate and work with the team at Operations One to share those lessons so that we could adapt and be agile to really come up with a working solution from both sides.
Yeah, thank you very much for the insights. And now we would like to take a look at the goals, the approach, and the rollout. But before we do that, we would like to take a quick look at the OEE metric for those who haven't heard of it yet. Since it's in the title of our webinar and is a very important metric in production. And as you can see, the overall equipment effectiveness describes the performance and efficiency of a plant, is defined in percentage, and you can say it's a standard for measuring manufacturing productivity. It relates to the three factors: plant availability, performance, and quality. We are also a little bit showing how you can calculate these single factors. But to give you just one example, if you're talking about an OEE score of 100%, that would mean that you are manufacturing basically with 100% for each factor. So you would produce with no stops, and this is the availability. When we come to performance, you would produce as fast as theoretically possible. And when it comes to the quality, with, let's say, 100% quality product, so only good parts, easily said. And I think this little explanation is a good foundation for our next slide when we come to the goals. So Jacob, could you please tell us more about your goals in maintenance, and then afterwards your target image for the future process?
Absolutely. Yeah, good lead in, that dream of 100% OEE. That's never really achievable, but always, you know, the North Star. In context of Oetiker, our objective is to reach what we would consider a world-class OEE of 85%. So that means 85% of the time we are running the equipment when it's planned to be running at the speed it's supposed to be running, producing good product. Of course, that means then you need to have stable processes, stable equipment in place so that you can reliably produce what you're supposed to be producing when you're scheduled to produce it. So as a supporting factor of that 85% OEE target, we have a sub-target to achieve, or sorry, to improve our availability from current levels by 15%. And two factors of that really are to reduce the mean time to repair by a certain percentage. So that means that the time it takes to make repairs needs to be less and less. means that the repairs are not significant stoppage issues, and also increase the mean time between failure. So we should have less repairs that need to be done. And again, for the mean time to repair, when those repairs do need to be done, they're easy to get the machine back up and running quickly. Global standardization of the maintenance work is then key to that. You know, if you're going to have reliable equipment that rarely stops, and when it does stop, it's very easy to get back up and running. It means the maintenance of that equipment needs to be on a world-class level as well. And finally, then digitization of the maintenance process to me is essential. So you have the right information at the right time to make sure the maintenance work is done, finally to achieve the goals at the top of the slide. So then the target image of our shop floor with leading to lean and operations one together. Again, maybe to set the stage. So starting in 2021, we began global implementation of operations one. And really the long-term target was already clear. We wanted to continue building on those lean fundamentals that we'd already established, but we wanted to replace our current static maintenance system with something that was more flexible, something that was more digital. And as mentioned before, we also wanted to provide seamless integration with our leading to lean system that the shop floor was already using every day. And we wanted to realize this in all of our production sites as listed across the top. So speaking then to the slide from left to right, again, we had communication already with the machines to understand the condition of the machines when they were running and what sort of time intervals where maintenance was necessary. Now with operations one, we're able to replace our existing paper copy of instructions with detailed machine specific instructions that are exactly broken down to that piece of equipment in that time frame. That's already done with some communication between leading to lean and operations one that Bastian will speak to in a moment. From the technician perspective, the document is presented to them in a digital format, usually on a tablet, industrial tablet directly on the shop floor, and they're able to go through and complete that maintenance instruction step by step using the touchscreen on the tablet. And then finally close that maintenance work once the total task has been completed. The integration with leading to lean then also closes that task schedule in leading to lean so that the complete effort is documented. We know that the maintenance work was finished, who did the maintenance work, when it was completed, how long it took, and also more factors like what spare parts maybe were consumed, or you know, what open actions would be needing to follow up based on some of that maintenance effort. We are also then able to analyze all the data I just mentioned. So for not just a single maintenance event, but for a series of maintenance events over time, we can understand our on-time completion, we can understand repeating trends, and ultimately continue that lean journey by being able to not just complete the maintenance, but improve the maintenance that we're already doing by leveraging the data that's available now in the system.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for the insights. I think this graphic shows really well how you can integrate operations one into an existing system landscape, and of course how to get rid of analog and paper-based processes. But the main thing I take away here is that we are removing complexity for the employee through, as you can see, the intuitive and specific digital checklists using graphics, photos, etc. And all this, let's say, digital process then really creates more transparency, and I would also say real-time process data. And of course, in the end, the big plus is to have automatic generated reports. And this is, as you said, really then a big benefit. But maybe we dive a little bit more deeper into the technical detail. Now I would ask you, Bastian, to briefly outline again how we from operations one side can help in maintenance and how we implemented the project from the technical side.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, first of all, Jacob, for the very well detailed introduction of how we did it at Oetiker. I think that pays into most of the points that I have here on the slide. So first of all, you mentioned you had a lot of the maintenance plans manually at the beginning, like magnet boards, Excel files, some lists somewhere. And in Operations 1, we are able to transfer those into maintenance plans, which you can then schedule for each and every machine. So you have an order management according to this maintenance planning, and either you can do it manually, as you described it before, or in the last detailed description from a leading system, for example, in this case, L2L, but we're also able to connect Operations 1 to any other system we know, like an ERP or other MES systems. Then you also mentioned that you broke down your paper-based checklists, which are very variant specific depending on the location you work at or what kind of machine is actually built in this location. And those checklists you can have in Operations 1 as digital checklists. You can see an example here on the right side where you have image-based and or video-based instructions on how to do the maintenance and how to operate during your task. And yeah, also mentioned the variants that you can map in here. So we have a possibility within the software, I will also go in detail to that a little later, where we use structured classes, which basically helps us to identify the right tool or the right machine and the right location and put a mapping together. So it's very customer specific, very customer specific setup. And by that, we can, with a small number or minor small number of documents, show a lot of machines that need to be maintained. And also something you mentioned already, but here to highlight it again, the maintenance reports that we're doing. So everything that the worker does is recorded in a digital format. So you have it always stored, and that pays also into the benefits. Here, I take the last bullet point on top. You increase your audit security since you have a full traceable maintenance. Other benefits, through regular maintenance, Jacob also mentioned that already, you have or you can avoid machine breakdowns and by that reduce non-value added documentation activities, or through your reduction of non-value added documentation activities, you can avoid machine breakdowns because you see earlier if something's not working right and you can replace it. By that, you have a more safer and modern working environment for your employees. So fewer accidents, hopefully, and caused by machines being maintained, everything works as it's supposed to. And then your maintenance process itself becomes more efficient because you know exactly at what point in time you know what you need to do. So planning and execution becomes more efficient. And one point mentioned, or not mentioned yet, but a very high benefit here is that you can deploy your staff more flexible. So basically anyone could take a maintenance instruction in the software and go to a place where maintenance is needed and do the repairs because it's really easily guided through in the software. And that leads also to the possibility that you can do autonomous maintenance, meaning the worker at the machine while running through the process can do smaller maintenance themselves while the error is occurring, and that makes it a lot easier. Yeah, coming to the details of how did we do this with Oetiker, or what information are we using? So mentioned by Jacob was they're using L2L as the main or single source of truth where they do the planning for maintenance and where the maintenance information is coming from. So here we can see how in the scheduler, in this case manually, the maintenance planner selects the interval and the machine that they want to repair or have repaired in this order. And then after selecting the interval, so we're speaking here of daily, weekly, monthly, semi-annually, whatever you want to choose, you can pick it here, and then you can pick the machine, and the maintenance order is stored as, or published then as a so-called dispatch in Leading to Lean. Go to the next slide, please. And here we can see in Leading to Lean, we get the dispatch number. That's on the left top corner in green. And according to that, we have an order created in operations 1. Now you can see here still the CO Plano order in the detail of the example. That is because Oetiker is a customer for a while, and yeah, operations 1 was named CO Plano before end of 2021. So we can see this is from a test environment. So I took the screenshots from a test environment, and that's why it still says CO Plano. But yeah, again, to summarize it, we create a dispatch in Leading to Lean, which then automatically creates an order in operations 1. On the next slide, we then can see the link from the order, from the dispatch in Leading to Lean to the order in operations 1. We again have the dispatch number. So the worker, it's very easy to identify the right order because the dispatch number from Leading to Lean matches the one in operations 1. And within the order, again, this is just an example, we have the document for the required maintenance that we have to do according to what kind of machine are we performing the maintenance on and what kind of frequency do we have here. We can see that also in the green frame here, machines and frequency. Now the question is, or let's talk about the variability that we mentioned before, where we have an order. Or can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, exactly. So about the variability that we have. Here you can see the band oiler, which is a part of a machine in various machines at Oetiker, as you can see here. So we have several documents according to the maintenance frequency in brackets behind it. So D is daily, W is weekly. And we have different kind of setups. Either it's a 1-tank system, a central supply, 2-tank or 3-tank system. And how do we know now that in this specific order, we just need the band oiler for the weekly frequency that has, or that is the certain type? We identify that the right document through the so-called classes. I mentioned that earlier. Please go to the next slide. We have structural classes and class elements that we can attach to the order and to the document itself. So by doing that, we can match the order information to the document information. Now, in this case, it's a different order. It's another example order. We can see it's a new order number on the left top corner, and we gave it, or through the Leading to Lean information that we received in operations 1, we added the class elements for the site, the machine, and the frequency. And then here's a detail of the information of the document itself. We can see there's also the machine mentioned and the frequency mentioned. And by this match, we can then pull the right documents into the order. On the next slide, you can see the order is a little bit bigger. We have different kinds of documents, and all those documents have some of the class elements matching to the order information that we receive from Leading to Lean. And yeah, by that, for the employee, it's very easy now. It's basically top to bottom. They go through each and every document, top to bottom, to finish up the maintenance work. And once they close it and finalize it in operations 1, we send some information back to Leading to Lean, where we say, okay, we finished the maintenance. in leading to lean, whatever, like the frequency, for example, is set back to the original counter, and we have the maintenance documented in operations 1. So all documents are available here. That's the magic behind it.
Yeah, thank you, Bastian, for the real great technical insight or deep dive. So then when you, of course, carry out a project like this successfully, there are always certain factors that, let's say, pay in or even guarantee the success of such a project. So to both of you, Jacob and Bastian, maybe starting with Jacob, which factors were definitely, let's say, significant for you to guarantee a smooth and, of course, successful execution of such a project?
Yeah, so I mean, overall, I think the first couple points speak to each other. The project milestones and the overall management was critical. As with any digital transformation, the end goal might be understandable by the project team, but how we get from where we are to where we're going is not always so easy. You know, it's quite often now we talk about software and classifications in the background that not all the employees really fully understood. So the support from operations 1 then to break down the vision into step-by-step actions that we could understand and see a path forward was really critical. From the company corporate management side, also then meeting those milestones was really critical to be able to see the results and the progress as we move forward. Collaboration also essential to be able to learn as we were doing was very important. As much as we have a long-term vision, there was lots of changes and adjustments that we need to make along the way. Add classifiers, decide we're not going to do maintenance by machine category, but individual machine serial numbers, and so on and so on. So collaboration with the operations 1 team and that fast response time where we can find something new, see an issue that we need to address, and then be able to quickly follow up and adjust was very important. And exchanging those ideas, right? We've gotten a vision from Oetiker's side on what we want to accomplish, but obviously operations 1 also has experience with their software and their platform and the process as a whole. So to be able to learn from both directions was responsible really to achieve the high level result that we've achieved. Quick creation of content. So basically being able to test things. We like to say, you know, try frequently and fail often, fail quickly so that we can move on and try something new. And in operations 1, it was very easy to set up new classifications, build some new documents, see what works, see what doesn't, get some feedback from the shop floor people and make adjustments. And then the last there, pre-structured class setup. So on the technical side, really being able to break down our process flow into those key properties, those key classifications that drive our maintenance work on a daily basis was helpful to really understand how we wanted to categorize this moving forward.
Yeah, I can also add to that. So I think very important for us as the receiving or the creating part in the how do we take information and remodel it to create an output as I just showed in very specific orders. It's very important that you have content on the platform that you can work with. So that was very important. Then also the pre-structured class setup, as Jacob mentioned, we received that from Oetiker early on and could upload like tons of lists of it just to make it easy to classify the documents that we then could add to the orders. And I think what you said, the openness for ideas, Jacob, that went for both sides. So being creative and open in our workshops was a big help that for some parts or in very important situations sped up the process because we were not afraid to stick to old rules or old settings that we had in mind. And yeah, it became a very creative process.
Okay, thank you, both of you. Now we would like to take a look at the results together. First of all, I just want to note they are intermediate results as we continue to have the joint ideas where the journey in maintenance should go in future. So handing over to you, Jacob, based on the previous, let's say, identified challenges, what are the results and benefits gained by digitizing the preventive maintenance process?
This is the fun part. So what we've achieved so far, really, you compare and contrast to each of the categories from previously. On the document handling side, we have greatly simplified the effort, not just for the administration of the documents, the creation, the approval, the release, the revision control, but also the distribution of those documents to really get them in the hands of the right people at the right time. Now that we have a digital platform instead of paper-based, I never have to worry that my maintenance person has the right instruction to complete his work today. It also opens up that possibility for flexibility so that we are no longer just stuck to saving the documents into a file share for record keeping, but we can actually analyze those documents, see the opportunities for improvement to increase or decrease maintenance frequencies, add or remove steps, add more detail, pictures, videos to make the maintenance work easier to do. But we can also use that feedback to easily revise those documents and get the latest copy of the maintenance available to the technician that does the work tomorrow, without such a bureaucratic administration of the paperwork. From the process side, we have enabled a lot of that configurability and that flexibility through the classifiers, like Bastian mentioned previously. So again, the same comment, I'm no longer worried that the right instruction is in the hands of the right person at the right time. I know that the maintenance team within Oetiker always has the most recent information for the work they need to complete. And it's also more transparent. We mentioned from the automotive side, this requirement for automotive auditability. So not just the maintenance person knows they're doing the right work, but his supervisor and the operations manager of the facility and external people that would come in to take a look at the work that we're doing also have a clear understanding and connection that the right work is being done at the right time. I think then the next, Marcus, on the global side, really speaks to the interim results. So on the implementation status, to date, we've rolled out to 6 of 12 Oetiker sites around the world, production sites around the world, and we have established plans to roll out to an additional 4 within realistically the first half of 2023. And that's a relatively easy rollout from our side because in a lot of locations, we just have to add another language. The documents already exist, the classifiers are already set up. We just have to include their pieces of equipment and translate the language to whatever is being worked on in that local country. And sustainability, I mean, it's fixed. We have no paper printing of documents at all. It's all digital. All we're doing is charging the battery on the tablet every afternoon so that we're good to go the next day. Finally, then, speaking to the numbers, not just the soft objectives, but really the hard metrics, what we've been able to achieve. I give some examples specifically for one site in Canada. OEE over the last 6 months, 4 machines where we've implemented operations 1 has increased 11%. And that's a result of a number of factors that you see after. Availability specifically is up 5%. So again, that's when we plan to run a machine, it is actually available to run 5% more. A lot of that is then due to a reduction in the mean time to repair. So when there are breakdowns, those breakdowns are much less significant than they were before, on the order of 23%. So the time it takes to fix a machine breakdown has been reduced by a quarter. And then an unexpected result, but also an attributable result, is the performance as part of that OEE calculation. So not only from an availability perspective are we seeing improvements, that the machine is available to run more of the time, but also when it's running better. We don't see small stoppages. We don't see machines running a little bit slower because there's certain maintenance issues that need to be addressed. So we have seen an 11% increase in the performance of the machines when they are running for those machines that are being maintained through operations 1.
Yeah, I really think these are very good and positive interim results for 6 months period. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So now we have come to our Q&A session. So that means if you have any questions, you now have the chance to ask them in the chat or in the Q&A functionality. And I just have a quick look. There are already some first questions. Bastian, if you see additional ones, please let me know. The one is, I think, a very good question to you, Jacob and Suzanne. How did you get support and budget from your management for such a project? I think that's a very interesting question.
Absolutely. Maybe I can start, Suzanne, you can add. A bit of a journey, definitely. Like I said, the long-term vision was easy to understand, but the step-by-step approach, which results we were going to achieve and why we were going to achieve them to ultimately justify the investment in a software and technology like this. Really, I think our approach was pilots. We started small. We got some great demonstrations from the operations one, like I see, blended team at the time, to show what was possible and give some real visual examples of what we were talking about, so everybody could see that same North Star, that same target picture. And then also starting small. We didn't try to implement, as you see on the previous slide, in all 12 factories at the same time. We started in North America, and then once we saw some results, quickly expanded to Europe and Asia step by step, and expanded our investment to suit that as well. The operations team on the commercial side was very flexible and understanding as we built our subscription model based around that as well. So short answer, we started small and we grew, I think would be the approach that we took to also gain that management buy-in to get the investment. Not sure, Suzanne, if you have anything to add to that?
No, not really.
Okay.
Okay, there's another question, a technical one to, I think, Bastian. How did you get the classes into the software?
Yeah, as mentioned before, I think I went through that very briefly. So what we can do is we take a list, basically any kind of format, most likely it's Excel, where we kind of map the process or the important parts that we want to get as a class element. And that's always very specific to the customer. Jacob also said that for a brief moment. So we basically took a look at the whole process, broke down to the classes that we needed, built an Excel sheet from that with all the class elements in it, and then we can directly upload them into the software. So technically, the user then doesn't have, or Oetiker in this case, didn't have to create all the classes manually, because you could see in the one document there was only, I don't know, already 100 attached to it or something like that. And you can imagine how many classes there actually are and how many class elements. And you can do that manually, so we won't stop you, but there's an easier way of doing that automatically. So by an Excel file or any kind of structured data format, we can transfer the classes into the software.
There's another question, I would say, for Suzanne and Jacob. How did you start the transition from paper documents into the digital platform?
Oh, that's my question, I believe. We really took our available instructions and copied the most tasks directly into operations one, especially in the beginning, where we was thinking how to do it, how we get the instructions. We even had to create first a new idea of the instructions of the documents in operations one. So we really took our available papers and copied them into the operations one and split one document in several smaller documents so that we can even have the variation of the machine set up in the background. So that was really it's still in hard work to take all the instructions from paper into operations one. That's still not finished yet. But yeah, it's really copied, structure the documents in operations one correct, and make the classificators in the backside.
Yeah, once you have it there, have it implemented, then of course it's much easier than in the end for the process.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Jacob, something to add, or?
No, I think well covered by Suzanne.
Because I have another question for you. On which level of detail of metrics do you look at in order to gauge the impact associated with the worker platform's capabilities, OEE, OAE, MTTR, MTBF, feel like big indicators which cover a broad range of criteria?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, on the high level, say from the management or the executive side, we talk about OEE, as that key indicator. But I agree with the question as well. From a a shiftly basis for a maintenance technician, that doesn't speak the same language. So typically, we fit these metrics in this analysis into what we would call, at least in Canada, our accountability structure. Which is kind of that lean culture concept again. So you go from your shiftly Gemba walk or your shiftly meetings with your direct operational people to your daily meetings, to your weekly meetings, escalating through the structure every time and escalating the levels of metrics every time as well. Or the daily meetings or the shiftly meetings where you're really talking with the operational staff. The highest we usually go is into availability. So we start at availability. That highlights usually the key machines where we had downtime problems. We then typically break those, say, top 3 machines where there were availability losses, high availability losses, into the downtime events that occurred. And then from there, we can analyze further into leading to lean or into operations 1 to understand the attributable causes, usually based on the classifiers or based on other categorized codes like reason codes or action codes. So not just the machine was stopped, but why it was stopped, how long it was stopped, who was working on it, what they did to fix it, so that we can then finally drive action. Because of course the metrics are not valuable unless you're doing something with the results. And I would say personally, from seeing on the shop floor, we've got tablets and digital devices, big touch screens out there that have replaced the whiteboards. The technicians can interact, they can engage, they can analyze the data themselves during those meetings. And they can also see the results and the actions that are being addressed to really solve the root cause of a lot of those issues. So it's not just about getting the data, but it's also about engaging the people and the cultural change. And we've got those different levels of metrics then throughout the organization to respond to that.
Okay, thank you very much. There's, I think, an additional question to Bastian. How did Operations 1 collaborate with Oetiker in document creation and classifying the documents?
Yeah, so in document creation, not too much. So this is very, very where it comes to the customer. So putting up the documents as they need, creating basically a copy of their paper documentation if they had one as of that date. But in classifying, as I said, there's possibilities to attach classifiers directly, automatically. Always depends on your needs. But there will always be a nice customer success manager helping you out with that, finding a solution for that. But yeah, document creation, like I said, this is mainly what the customer needs to do. And yeah, big applause to Susanne here. She did most of it.
Taking the time into account, one last question. I see one. It's a time travel question, to be honest. So the question is, time traveling to 2027. How might the day of a head of an engineering at Oetiker be different compared with today?
Great question. I mean, I hope the answer is easier. Being more direct, I would say much more data-driven decision making, I would say, is the key takeaway. Right now, even today, with the systems we have in place, we're still growing, we're still evolving, we're still documenting our processes and implementing our tools. In 2027, say 2030, the objective, the vision is we have the data at our fingertips. Already now I can pull out my mobile and I can see the status of all the equipment and what work's being done in every location. When I can pull up reports to understand long-term investments, where we need to improve, where we need to invest capital, where we need to adjust, which project we should manage, to meet that's the real difference. Instead of multiple Zoom calls or team calls discussing the soft side of decisions. It should be more and more based on the hard side. The data is available. I understand where we are. I understand where we need to be, and I can quickly make factual decisions on what we need to do based on that data.
Thank you very much. First of all, yeah, for your questions. And of course, if you have further questions after the webinar, please reach out to us. And at this point, I would like to briefly introduce the next steps. You will receive a follow-up email after this webinar with a presentation as a PDF file to download. And in addition, we would appreciate your feedback on the webinar. Of course, we want to constantly improve. And furthermore, in the email, you will have the opportunity to request a free trial access if you would like to gather your own first impressions, experiences with Operations One. So in the end, I would like to thank our speakers, Susan, Jacob, and Bastian, for this really great webinar. It was fun. And of course, thank you for sharing your great insights. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the insights were very interesting for our webinar audience too. As I said, great pleasure, and thank you very much. And now I will close this event by wishing you all a great afternoon. Goodbye, till next time.